Hi everyone, I'm Mike Boblett with John L. Scott.
This is Dan Brower with Castle Home Inspection, serving the Spokane County in North Idaho.
And today we're going to do a little bit of an interview here, just to get to know Dan a little bit better.
Yeah, Mike was kind enough to bring me on today, and I'm excited to share a little bit about myself and a little bit about home inspection as an industry. I think it can be kind of a confusing niche, and it helps clients to understand more about the industry with their home buying process. So,
yeah, definitely. So how long have you lived in the Spokane area?
I'm actually kind of a newbie, I got to be honest. I spent 5 years in the Army as a paratrooper, and when I got out, me and my wife were looking for a certain lifestyle that only towns like Spokane can offer. We wanted a mid-sized city. We're big into outdoorsing. And we wanted that family environment where we felt like there's definitely adult activities and we want to be able to enjoy those, but Spokane is the kind of place where I can take my kids out and do activities as well, and I really like that.
Yeah, definitely. I love it here too. What's your favorite part about living here?
Oh, man. The Spokane region as a whole starts to enter that Rocky Mountain side of the Midwest, and me and my wife are avid outdoorsmen, hiking, mountaineering. Recently I've gotten into fishing quite a bit, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard from an old man recently that there's 100 lakes in 100 miles, and that got my skin tingling because I am getting really big into fishing right now.
Yeah, I think I've heard that too.
Yeah, that's
pretty awesome.
I love the outdoors, and that's what I love about here.
Yeah, me too, definitely. Do you have a favorite restaurant that you go to?
This one isn't going to work in Spokane's favor. I love Texas Roadhouse. So okay. I have to temporarily leave this blessed county and get me some good steak. So
where's the closest one?
Coeur d'Alene. So
okay,
just
one
not
too
over.
far.
Yeah. I will say this though, a close number 2 is the it's in Airway Heights. It's a steakhouse, but they do a lot of game meat. I think it's called the Rusty Moose. I highly recommend.
Oh yeah, right there by the airport.
Yeah, if you've, I don't know if you've been there or not.
I haven't.
Oh man, they do. Not to get too distracted here, but if you like bison or more game style meat,
yeah,
they do gourmet exotic meat cooking, and it's if you're in the mood to experiment, or if anyone watching this is in the mood to experiment with game meats. It's phenomenal. They do delicious food, and it's got a great environment inside. It looks like a fly fishing shop turned into a steakhouse. Kind of cool.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of went over, but what are some of your other hobbies that you like to do when you're not doing home inspections? I know you said you like to do a lot of outdoors stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, mentioned fishing. Actually, that brings into another hobby. I used to do, when I was a lot younger, I used to do a lot of kayaking with my dad. We'd do excursions, 25, 50 miles over a couple days. Where you kayak and then camp. And then I grew up a little bit, and kayaks are expensive. And right. I was like, oh, well, I guess that's not a hobby anymore. And then recently, perusing Craigslist like we all do with our free time, I came across a couple of fishing kayaks.
Oh, nice.
And I just bought them last week, and I've already gone out once. I intend to start. I haven't fished yet, but I really want to get into kayak fishing. But on the side of that, me and my wife find we have a lot of quality time out kayaking together on some of these, lakes and streams and creeks. It's a real
awesome.
Nice time. So.
Yeah, I had a kayak when I lived in Arizona, so I want to get another one for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, when we get done with this video, we should go kayak.
Right? Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get a little more into the home inspections.
Sure.
So how does someone find a qualified home inspector like yourself?
Well, in Washington State, we're truly fortunate that they require home inspectors to be licensed in accordance with state law. And I know some people are like, oh, it's another way that they're taking your money. But I would actually counter that. I would say that when the state requires you to go to a trade school, requires you to apprentice under a master, and then requires you to be a member in good standing by paying your dues and doing continuing education, I think it produces a better inspector than somebody who can try and go out on their own. And I'm not knocking the guys in other states that go out on their own, but that can it's a recipe for failure on both the inspector and that potential home buyer that just wants to have a quality job done.
Right.
So,
that makes sense. Yeah, it's just about it's going to happen. You know, you have to learn. So you learn when you're with the apprentice rather than out on your own.
Exactly. And I was very lucky. I was able to apprentice under a man named Larry Howe. He just retired in Western Washington. He was the former ASHI Washington State president.
Oh, wow.
And a wealth of knowledge. I'm friends with his son, so it fell into my lap. I got pretty lucky. But he passed on some things to me that have just been a wealth of help in my business dealings and in my providing that quality inspection.
That's great.
As far as finding a qualified home inspector, though, I think that is there's some information I could pass on there, but I think a lot of it has to do with the client not just looking for price, and how does that client find quality. And I've done a lot of research on it, and I at one point I put together a PowerPoint to help first-time home buyers. I used to teach some of those classes. But I think it really boils down to three major things. Number one, if you're a client looking to buy a house and you've gone under contract and it's time to get that home inspection, first and foremost, ask your agent for some inspectors they recommend. Your agent's livelihood and success, not just for home inspection, but for every recommendation they make, it weighs heavily on their reputation. Agents, especially with John L. Scott, some of these other highly regarded brokerages, they have to require the best and they have to vet the best. So you can kind of hit the fast forward button by asking your agent who they recommend.
Right.
And then number two, I would say call, first, I'm sorry, I got a little tricked up there for a second. So first and foremost, ask your agent. Then second, I would go online and pick the top three, in your opinion, home inspectors based off these two things. One, Google reviews, not just quantity, but quality. People will tend to write longer reviews when they're more enthused or pleased with the quality of work. And
Right.
Second, I would look at their website. Not to knock inspectors with older websites, that's perfectly fine, but even an older website that has a high quality inspector, somebody that's very deliberate with their actions, will have a very tidy website. So the website can be old, but just take a look. Does it look professional? Does it look tidy? How are the reviews? And then the third thing, and this is how you really vet them, is I would call the 1 to 4 that your agent recommends, and then the 3 more that you found on Google, I would call them and I would ask them for a quote on your house and ask them what they do in the home inspection. And then this is the part where you listen. And when I say listen, I don't just mean to keep your mouth shut, stuff like that. What I mean is listen to how they sound over the phone. I think this is a big thing with tradesmen, people in the trades as a whole. If they sound professional over the phone, if they sound like they speak, they articulate in a very specific way, people that sound professional over the phone tend to be professional in person.
Right.
So I would
Yeah, I
listen
agree.
to all 5 or 6, and then I would pick the one you want. Now, price is important, but I wouldn't go for the lowest price person, because the lowest price person typically is looking to undercut competition in some way. Now, that's not because I want to bolster the cost of a home inspection. I don't want you to pick the most expensive one. When it comes to there's specific niches in home inspection, just like real estate. You don't want to pay a luxury, inspector that specializes in custom built mansions,
Right.
the rate he charges for your first time home, for that home for your children. You want to find that middle road, that middle priced inspector, very articulate and professional over the phone, highly reviewed and regarded, and a bonus if your agent already works with him because he has the pleasure of saying this is what he does and this is how he works. So those are my big 3 steps. I'd highly recommend you utilize them.
Yeah, awesome answer.
Sure.
So what areas do you service?
Well, I serve all of Spokane County in North Idaho,
Okay.
but I will extend beyond that. I am a bit of an inspection hunter. I like the fact that some of them require additional effort. I've done inspections all the way up past Elk. I've done one in a town called Washtuckna, Washington. I had to look it up to find it. I do charge a small mileage fee, but I think the experience of saying, man, I drove to the moon and back to get this inspection done, it's fulfilling to me in an odd way. So it's hard to explain. Typically, I prefer to do inspections in Spokane County in North Idaho, but the second week of July, I'm doing 2 inspections in Puyallup, Washington, which is
okay.
Western Washington. So that is a very hard question to answer. I'm sorry about that.
So you'll pretty much go
I will
almost
go
anywhere.
I will go where a client needs me. I enjoy being that guy.
That's
So
awesome.
it's a lot of fun. Being on the hunt, doing what I can to make it happen. So,
Yeah. Awesome. So how long does a home inspection typically take?
That's a great question. And what I usually say over the phone is, about 2 to 4 hours, I think is a safe bet. Some manufactured homes only take an hour and a half.
Right.
And then recently I've done a few, I don't know if they quite qualify as mansions, but large custom homes,
Okay. Yeah.
6, almost 7,000 square feet.
Right.
And those are coming up on 5 to 6 hours. But I would say for the average home buyer, the people I enjoy working with, families, veterans especially, buying a middle class home, 2 to 4 hours. And I highly encourage, and I know a lot of other inspectors do as well, but I highly encourage you to be there for the entire thing. Why not come out for those 2 to 4 hours and learn about your house? You can tail me everywhere except for the roof, because
Right.
that violates all of that insurance I'm paying for. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Me personally, I like to go to all of my clients' home inspections also.
Yeah, I think.
Because then I know exactly what's going on. The report says a lot,
Mhm.
but being there in person, you know exactly what's going on with the house.
Buying a home is an emotional process. I mean, you know this, of course. I find 90% of the problems, they get solved when people are there. If they're just there, and on the report it could say, "Oh my goodness, the world is ending," but if they're there, they could say, "No, it's not. I know what he's talking about. It's the door frame is just off,
Right.
something minor." So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think if the agent, the client, and the home inspector are all there, man, what a great communication pathway as well. Nothing gets misinterpreted. It's
Exactly.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long does it take? When can a client typically receive home inspection? Expect to receive it?
I'll answer that twofold, I guess. For me, home inspection reports are done on site. I use this fantastic home inspection software on my business phone, and I think a lot of other home inspectors need to start doing this, but that's okay. They'll catch up. Using talk to text vastly increases the speed of me getting you that needed report, getting your client that needed report. So what I do is I go throughout the home, deliberately testing all of the things I test, which we can, it's a huge list, but going throughout the home, and I use talk to text and photos to put together the report. And it allows me to dialogue my thoughts and work very quick. And because of that, reports are sent to you and your client on site.
That's awesome.
At the very end, we shake hands. I thank them for the opportunity to inspect their home, and then they get the ding in their pocket, and there's their report.
Wow, you can't beat that.
Yeah, and the second way I wanted to answer that is for most of the industry, which is a lot of it's an aging industry. A lot of new guys are coming in to fill the ranks, and I'm happy that they're joining me. Some of the gentlemen that are a little bit long in the tooth, what they'll do, and what was commonly accepted, there's nothing wrong in what they're doing, it's just it was at a different time commonly accepted. They would fill out the report as they went, and they would take 100, 200, 300 photos. They would take photos of everything, and that would be their memory. And then they would go home, and they would go to their personal office or to their building where their business is, and they would sit down for a couple hours and type, and then they would either send it off at the very end of the night, or the next day when they had time to review it a second time for grammatical errors.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that because you only wait 24 hours for the report. That's still pretty quick, and that was considered the new fast 20 years ago.
Right.
But we're entering that age where technology can aid us in helping clients. And for me, talk to text has given my report the speed that I think it needs now, especially with the market the way it is. Everything has got to be quick. So,
right. Yeah. Everybody wants that instant gratification, that everything right away.
Exactly. If they want that house, they have to have that house. And, who am I but not to provide exactly what they want as fast as possible. So,
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's your favorite part about being a home inspector?
I love it all. I think I thought the Army was my calling, but I got the itch for small business, and I got the itch for the trades. I wanted to be a tradesman, and I wanted to own a small business, and that's an itch you can't scratch in the Army. So every day I've been a home inspector has been better than the last. I hands down enjoy all of it. Now, if I had to dial that in to something a little bit more specific for you, other than saying I love everything, I would say I like the act of inspecting the house because it's like solving the world's biggest multi-sided Rubik's Cube. It is so fun to go into homes and say, what caused that stain on the ceiling? Okay, let's get into the attic. Okay, I've traced that to this specific rafter that has a crack in it, which is putting pressure on the plywood, and the plywood is the decking that's underneath your roof covering, the asphalt shingles. Then I go get on the roof the second time, and I look at that specific spot, and I'm like, okay, I can see a torn shingle here. And it's so gratifying to follow that what caused this, the causation and correlation. It's a fantastic time. I know that can be dry for some people, but for me, it just does the trick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then the other thing is, I really like helping veterans specifically. I am one myself, and by helping veterans, I don't mean veterans don't like handouts. I can tell you that right now. They want to feel like they earned whatever they've done. So the discount I offer is for all veterans, and it's fair, but they can still say, no, I paid for that inspection on my own 2 feet. And I think it's a great way to meet in the middle. And I also just like help them, as a whole. When they come out to the inspection, we get a little bit of the camaraderie.
Yeah.
We get to talk a little bit about our time in, and then they get to learn about their house. They feel empowered. That's going to be their home. And then I offer them a discount across the board, all veterans. So
that's awesome. What is that discount?
That's $50 off. I know a lot of other home inspectors do. Everybody does a discount for active military, but that's only a small portion of the people in the Spokane County. I believe it's 7,000 or 8,000, maybe tops at Fairchild Air Force Base.
Okay.
But there are a lot of veterans and a lot of different age groups out there, and I thought, how can I reach more of my tribe? How can I reach more of my people? So I offer a $50 discount for active duty military and all veterans across the board. And then I highly encourage them to come out and just get to know me, and I'll get to know them, and it's a great time. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What's the most common defect that you find?
I knew you were going to ask this one. Oh man, the most common defect I find. It's either got to be GFCIs near water sources.
Okay.
Or seismic straps on water heaters.
Okay.
Those are probably the two main ones. Actually, those are two of the three things I've made a personal crusade against. I will convert all of Spokane County to seismic straps on water heaters, GFCI protection near water, and lag bolts or lag screws underneath decks. I don't want any more deck collapse videos going on YouTube, and I'm going to make it my crusade to stop that in Spokane. So
awesome.
But yeah, those first two are nine houses out of 10. This is not including new construction. They're required to have both.
Right.
Everything outside of new construction, nine houses out of every 10 has some kind of problem with those two things.
And those are fairly easy fixes. So
they're very easy. Yep, it's metal banding for water heaters on the top and bottom third of the water heater tank attached to house structure using a lag screw of some sort. And then GFCIs. The last time I was at Lowe's, I saw them for $18.99. That's very affordable, especially if you do it smartly. Let's say in the kitchen, if you have 4 outlets, you don't need to go out and spend $80 on GFCIs. You can figure out how the circuit works and just put one on the first outlet, and it will protect the rest.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
$20 and you fix the kitchen. I mean, it's very affordable fixes, and we just we want to make sure people are safe. We don't want any problems with that stuff. So
yeah, definitely. So any sellers out there watching this video, those are a couple things you could look out for, so that he doesn't have to call him
fix
out
it
during
before
the
I
inspection.
do. Fix it before I find it.
And then to wrap things up here, what are some of the tools that you use while you're doing home inspections? I know you brought some over here with you.
Yeah, at your request, I lugged in a couple bags. Well, first and foremost, I'm using my senses, my sight, my touch, smell. That's how you pick up gas leaks, things like that. Now, I have tools to detect gas leaks, but that first trip is going to be, I smell gas. And then, as a home inspector, it's we're constantly doing continuing education and all that stuff, and keeping that in our minds with regular study of postcards and stuff like that keeps us sharp. So the main tool I'm using is my senses and my brain. On top of that, though, I tend to bring with me, this is the tool belt that I have. I know it's a small little modular thing, but there's only some specific things I need. So first and foremost, I have a pinless moisture detector. Now, I use this around the base of toilets, the base of your tub, your recess tubs, or your shower stalls, and then wherever I suspect moisture staining on ceilings or walls in the attic space. It's very easy to power this thing on, adjust the setting to drywall, softwood, hardwood, masonry, and then it's pinless, so you just set it and you move until you get a reading of moisture, and that can tell me, there's not a leak there anymore. It's just an old stain. It was repaired. Oh, okay. The next one I have, I use it throughout the inspection as I go, is a temperature reader with a little, you can see over on the wall there, it's got, actually I'll do it so they can see it. It's got a little red dot, and I can put that on the water that's coming out of the faucet to get a household average water temperature, make sure people aren't burning their hands. Okay. When I test your HVAC system, I will test the heating and cooling and get a household average for your heat load and your cooling load. And I will take measurements at every register on every floor of the house, and then I will get a household average for heating and cooling. Okay. And that tells you if your HVAC system is working properly, if it's meeting the needs of that size of house. Can't tell you how many times I've found a AC unit that was too small for the house because they were looking to cut corners on the cost a little bit. And that's when in the dead heat of August people are struggling. So we want to make sure that the HVAC system provides heating and cooling for the needs. So is there a certain number that you're looking for between the heat and the cooling? So for heating, I like to see over at least 90 degrees at the registers. Okay. And that's on the low end. Most of the time I see between 100 and 118 coming out of the registers. And that seems pretty hot, but it's forced air that's being pushed, carrying that heat into a room that's 60, 70 degrees. So it dissipates, and that's how your house gets heated. Now for cooling, what you actually do is you take a temperature reading at the registers, and then you take it at the return where the air is coming back. Okay. And then you measure the temperature drop. And for AC units, HVAC technicians, correct me if I'm wrong, but I oftentimes hear 17 to 20 degrees is what we're looking for. Okay. Some people are hard and fast at 20 degrees. Some say it has to be over. Some say 17 to 20, 18 to 20. I just pick a range, because I'm not an expert entirely in HVAC. I simply exercise some of the testing that they do. Right. So if the household temperature is 75 degrees at the return, and it's 55 degrees at the registers, that means that your AC unit, your central cooling system, is functioning very efficiently. Okay. And your house is going to actually cool you off when you've been out doing some yard work. So
Yeah, and that's definitely important in the summer, of course.
Yeah, these summers, oh my goodness. I think it was, so I moved here recently. It was 108 degrees the day I helped unload the truck to my house.
Wow.
Yeah, it was August. That was the only day, I will say this, that was the only day I had second guesses about living out here for one day. And then by the next day, I knew this was home. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's no fun moving in the heat, that's for sure.
Yeah, no. Some of the other tools I keep on me, and this is really basic stuff, guys, but I think because most of it is, it's a non-invasive inspection, so I'm doing what I can to test the entire house, and that doesn't require a lot of tools. But some of the things I do use are stickers for marking outlets. I cannot tell you how many times I have found a problem with an outlet wired incorrectly, missing a ground wire, or the GFCIs we talked about. And describing it is extremely difficult. You cannot tell somebody 6 inches from the northwest corner.
Right.
You're 6 feet from the northwest corner, measuring 18 inches above the ground. They're not. It's too much work. So I find that if I color code the problems with stickers, they just say, "Oh, I go to bedroom number 3 and I look for an orange sticker, and that one needs a ground wire or a GFCI breaker or something like that." So
Nice.
yeah, it's a communication tool, you could say.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, we have, and I didn't bring in, I have a load tester. I have a much more expensive version of this that does calculated load testing, measures GFCI, AFCI, which is arc fault, and that's sparks.
Oh, okay.
Your arc fault protection, and a load of other, amperage and voltage measurements and ohms. But this is your basic GFCI outlet tester. So what I do is into every single outlet of the house, I plug this guy in. If I get 2 yellow lights, that means that your hot and neutral wire are on the correct lugs and you have a ground wire. And then if I press the test button and the power is cut, there's GFCI protection. This creates an outside surge to make sure that you're actually protected.
Oh,
so I'll oftentimes find that you'll have a GFCI, which is, for those of you that don't know, that has a black test button and a red reset button. You'll see them in the kitchen and bathrooms oftentimes, and in the garage. You can test it and it will click, and then you hit reset, but then when I plug this in, it won't test. And that means it's actually a faulty unit, and you wouldn't have known unless I had checked. So some of the stuff like that, I try and, some problems, they're not maliciously placed there. It's just, how else would you have known? So
Right.
yeah, I think it's very important to dig out every last little problem and give clients a screenshot of the house.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the other things I use is a, forgive me, I got a bunch of stuff. Is this is a gas leak sensor. So what you do is I turn this guy on. I can set the sensitivity levels. I gather, and I'm outside of the camera, aren't I? All right.
Yeah, I think you're okay.
I gather an air sample of what the air normally is like, because you have to set your norm.
Okay.
And then I bring it near where I suspect a gas leak is, and it will tell me the difference. It'll start pinging. And that's how I find and locate. After I smell, I can tell if it's a gas leak or if it's just, there's a delay in the gas furnace kicking off and it left a little smell. Because
Okay.
I don't want to be the boy who cried wolf. I want to find real problems. So
Yeah.
I find this is a very useful tool for confirming my suspicions. And then I have. Just a bunch of stuff that gets me into spaces. So I use protective masks, gloves. I have knee pads. These are actually from the military, believe it or not. Gloves. I have a full set of coveralls because I will go into attics and I will go into crawl spaces and I will go into those nasty places that you don't want to go because that's where problems could be. So
Right.
I'll get up into an attic that's a very tight fit. And if I have to, I'll crawl on my hands and knees in my protective gear, and I'll racetrack the attic looking for problems so that I can get photos and dialogue proof that they're there so that my clients are protected. So
That's awesome.
one of the ancillary services I offer is radon testing. For those of you that don't know that are watching this, radon has become, as you know, Mike, radon is a bit of a problem out here in Spokane.
Right.
I recommend you go to the EPA website. They have maps and they talk about the threats of radon, and I find it's a very unbiased source, so you're not getting the life insurance. I'm dogging on life insurance guys. Sorry to my life insurance guys. That was a joke. You don't get the scare sales. But there is radon out here, and it can be a causer of lung cancer. I think they say 21,000 people a year die from lung cancer that is caused by radon coming out of the ground and being brought into the house because your house has a different air pressure than the outside. So
Wow.
It creates a vacuum and pulls it into the low places of your home. But not to scare you, because it depends on a lot of soil conditions you can't control several thousand feet down into the ground, because radon is a byproduct of uranium. But you can mitigate it really easily if you have it. It's a 4-inch PVC pipe installed by a radon company into your subfloor of your basement or lowest level of your house. And it runs up to the roof, and then the wind outside creates a vacuum inside that tube, and it pulls your radon right outside of the house. Very easy fix.
Oh yeah,
So
it is
but
easy.
We want to find it though, so that's the thing.
Definitely.
What I have and what I use, Castle Home Inspection and myself have several of these. They're Radstar continuous radon monitors. These are very sophisticated pieces of equipment. They go on a tripod just like this, and it's put in the lowest livable space of your house for 48 hours. And it does continuous readings of the radon levels, and then every hour it creates a snapshot report. This was the level for that hour.
Oh,
And
wow.
then at the end of 48 hours, or whenever I pick it up, sometimes because of the workload I can't get it for 60 or 70 hours, that's okay. It will average all of those and give you a household average of the radon level. Some other cool things about this actually is it has tamper proof. So if somebody is touching it or bumping it, it registers. It doesn't stop recording, but it registers on that report where there were bumps and tampers.
Oh wow.
So you can be confident that your report was not mishandled or that your radon test wasn't messed with in any way.
Right.
But it's a 48-hour test, and then it gives you a snapshot of the radon levels, and it empowers you and your agent, like Mike here, to say, in Mike's case, he knows just the guy to handle that radon problem, and then you get it knocked out. So.
And how much do you charge for the radon testing?
For me personally, I charge about $100 for the radon test. We were joking about this earlier, but I have a little bit of a vendetta on the cost of radon tests these days. And it's just a personal thing where I don't think that you should be able to charge $150, $175. Even if the metal box is expensive, it's not providing quality, it's just providing a sound test. I provide the highest quality inspection, so I charge, middle market, what I think is fair for somebody who provides, quality. But this box just provides an accurate reading, so I charge $100 for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all the questions that I have.
Yeah, I think I talked your ear off. I drank 25 ounces of coffee on the way over here and got all amped up. So
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me and getting to know you a little better. And anybody out there needing a home inspection, I definitely recommend Dan here, Castle Home Inspections.
I appreciate it, Mike. I'll caveat to that. If you haven't bought a house yet, go see Mike. He's the guy.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.